As Western society approaches the edge of the abyss, it is becoming increasingly clear eventually something is going to have to replace it. This will be done actively, passively, or a mixture of both. Our fiscal, immigration, and social policies are immoral and therefore, by extension, are unsustainable. Sweden is the usual example referred to, where a nation of, with exception, poodles have opened their borders to wolves with the inevitable long-term consequences. However, it would be inaccurate to assume that this is a uniquely Western phenomenon, as the poodles are making inroads in Saudi Arabia also. Whatever about peak oil production, it seems we are east of peak demand, as the developed and developing economies are diversifying into renewables and alternatives. Of all the resource-based economies in the Middle East, Saudi will be the most affected by this for obvious reasons. More importantly, this will curtail funding for political extremist Islam in the West in the near future. And let's be clear, radical Islam has an artificial existence in the West, being funded both by the welfare state and Saudi oil revenues, of which we now know are unsustainable. The bottom line is, though the House of Saud or Muslims will never accept this, but Saudi Arabia seeks to westernize. Presently, Saudi is privatizing its state-owned businesses to raise capital to fund a knowledge-based economy. Of course, how it expects to achieve this while its leaders hold such extreme views is something of a dichotomy. However, I think this is achievable for two reasons. One, China has been successful at diversifying its economy while having an authoritarian leadership. Two, given the left's ability to warp ideological space-time, I have no doubt Western feminists will have no objection to donning hijabs while studying gender inequality in the newly built Saudi colleges. Remember, the West has always used technology to secure its survival. Once that fails, so too does the civilization. Bearing the USSR and China in mind, it does not follow that a secular democracy is necessarily needed. And now we have an expansionist theocratic regime putting a dog into this fight. If you are in the West and feel threatened by this development, you should be. However, luckily for you, there is another civilization that feels even more so. Whatever about Jewish banking conspiracies, it is clear they are very resourceful, clever people who punch vastly above their own weight. Looking back at Judeo-Christian history, when we got it wrong, we got Nazi Germany and the USSR. When we got it right, we got the USA and Israel. That's right, Israel. People say to me, not all Jews support the state of Israel. That's true, but those Jews who feel they can still have the luxury of being agnostic on this issue won't be long changing their minds when a wolf appears at the door, just like our Western middle-class lefties. Unlike the Jews, however, these feminists and multiculturalists will have nowhere to run, and rather than accept that they've been outmaneuvered, they will happily secure the religious identity of themselves, their children, and grandchildren, in fear that they'll be called Islamophobes. Need I remind people, it is no coincidence the right lost the culture war when it lost Jewish support. If anything, we have to learn from their historical experience. As I am in Europe and don't feel publicly secure to express my political, cultural, or economic values without being pinned or doxxed for having what were centrist views not 10 years ago. The bottom line is, I am not socially acceptable, not because I have crossed any line, but that line has crossed me. As a white, right, straight, cultural Christian person in Europe, I am acutely aware that I am of the silent majority, but outspoken minority. And unfortunately for me, the former does not have a good historical record of protecting human rights. It's lonely enough here without attacking other minorities who have as much or more to lose given our present trajectory. So let's be clear. I am pro-Israel, not Palestine. Not because I have any great intellectual reason, but to be blunt, my interests are more in line with the Jewish struggle than with the Palestinian.